hypnosis, coaching, business, and more. Intriguing guests and experts, world-renowned speakers and personalities. Open conversation and in-depth topics, straight to your screen or speaker. Let me introduce your host, Martin Castor.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Mastery Through Passion podcast and webcast, or whatever we call it these days. Today, I got kind of like an interesting guest on many, many levels. I've known this guy for many years now, and we always seem to hit it up together and having fun on, well, basically everywhere we meet. There's so many things I both respect and really adore about how Jason, he's doing all his business right now, because he's definitely my go-to guy. He's my guru when it comes to all the marketing stuff. He's a brilliant hypnotist. He's an amazing teacher, and actually he's also an amazing speaker. There's basically nothing he can't do. So it's an honor on this second podcast to bring on Jason Linett. And hi and welcome, Jason.
Hey, Martin, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's definitely my pleasure. I kind of, I made a list like who's going to be the first people I want to speak with on the podcast, who can bring value. And, we could easily make a big list, but there's definitely some favorites that I want to share this beginning of the podcast with, because not only do we agree on a lot of stuff on an ethical level with the work we do in hypnosis, but it would be people that I admire and people that at any time I would recommend other people to go see. And you're definitely within that category. So, hey, it's my pleasure to see you on the podcast.
Well, thank you. Absolutely. It's been awesome getting to know you over the years and excited to see what you're doing with this project.
Awesome. So we got the first segment, and here comes the breaker. It's time! Okay, Jason, head to head. So we need to know a little bit about you, actually. So first of all, the short details. Who is Jason Linett?
Yeah, so my intro into this world is a little bit different than others. That, in terms of being a hypnotist, I don't think many of us grow up with the goal of that being the one thing that we want to do. Of all things, I began with a career working in professional theater, which I wasn't an actor or a director or even a designer. I was in management, making all those creative people get along, which if that's not psychological training, I don't know what is. Very sensitive creative types. And I burned out beautifully in that career, which is something I'm proud of now. And hypnosis was this hobby I had picked up from seeing someone come to my college, my university, and do a show for all the students. And what began as a hobby started to become, I'll do a program here, I'll do a program there. And I found myself basically in a situation that too many people find themselves in, that I was throwing my life into a career that I wasn't enjoying, and it wasn't financially rewarding. And yet, meanwhile, here is this hobby. And I, for a few moments, fell into the belief system that it's hard to start a business, that most small businesses fail. But I reached that point of threshold of just enough is enough. And I put myself into a situation where I had to succeed. I signed a big, scary lease for 3 years and went, this is what I'm going to do now. And that's now back to when I moved in the United States, from Maryland to Virginia. Most of the story goes back to November 2009. And we've been running now for almost a dozen years. Of making it work, seeing clients around the world, offering the trainings. And, the business success is great, but the primary goal is that I've designed my lifestyle in such a way that I get to go home in the evening to Michelle, to Claire, to Max, my family, my wife and kids, and be with them. So it's where the line from the classic book, Michael Gerber, his book, E-Myth Revisited, that we can work in our business, but we also need to work on our business. That I want to add the third part to that so we can then be out of our business and the systems still be running and everything is still thriving. And even as world events may occur, as it has in all of 2020 so far, to still have the mechanisms to let things still be running and thriving in whatever economy we run into.
Oh yeah, and I was kind of wondering, because I love how you put your business together and the whole building of what I call the Jason Linett empire, right? And
That's
I
why it's
mean that
purple.
that's it. And that's going to be one of my questions though. But no matter where you look online on different platforms that has to do with hypnosis or how to grow your business within hypnosis, no matter who you look at and how fancy people are, it always ends up with somewhere there's a Jason Linett Work Smart Hypnosis ad or something like that. So there's some amazing strategy behind that. So why do you think that suddenly you hit a nerve within this business? Is it the wrapping? Is it the content? Or is it something magical that you know of that it kind of like made you the go-to guy when it comes to marketing and this type of business?
Well, yeah, thank you for that. There's two thoughts, or probably more by the time I'm done around that, which would be that I first got into hypnosis in a school of thought that was a little bit too absolute. As in, if you don't use this technique, you're not going to get results. Or even the opposite of that, which is that you should never use this technique. That doesn't work. And I found all this conflicting data, which at the end of the day, that was someone's sales pitch to then try to sell you something different. If we pull back from a technique standpoint, all of this stuff works. We just have to use it. And we know that the more we work with clients, whether someone watching this is a hypnotist or anything other than a therapeutic outcome, or even a past client as well, when we look at it, you can't say this technique is neither good nor bad because it's a matter of how the person makes use of it. So we're a culture that's fallen into a few too many absolutes, which the disclaimer to that is you should never, ever, ever speak in absolutes. Which, thank you, that was. But it's that revelation that really all of this stuff is effective. And it's a matter of being there, showing up to your appointment with your client and truly listening to what they say. Because the more we actually open up that sensory awareness, the more we realize our clients are speaking in techniques. They may come in, and here's the obvious one. I just feel like part of me wants this and part of me wants that. If only we had something for that. And to recognize that, again, these techniques are valid. It's a matter of how they're applied to the individual. So this sort of theme of confidence, creativity, and flexibility was really the whole mindset around how we work with our clients, which the benefit of that is you hop into any online forum and you see the dialogue of someone's coming for this. I don't know what to do. Or do you have a script for this? But instead to get into a mindset of here are the tools in the toolbox, and to let every strategy we would ever learn become universal, which the benefit now becomes all I have to do to listen to my client, ask myself what in my toolbox is this like, and then share that message. The other side of what you asked there was the visibility. And I'd share it came from an inspiration from an unlikely source. It was an interview with Penn and Teller, Penn Jillette from Penn and Teller. And I loved the nuance of this interview with Penn Jillette, which was that he talked about how they have the biggest marquee in all of Las Vegas. And as much as there are people who are performers there who get paid a lot more than they do, but their billboard is bigger than Celine Dion.
Yeah, the entire hotel, actually.
It's the entire side of the hotel. The theater has their name on it. It sells out every night. But as he put it, if we are not willing to turn off what's working to go do something else, if we don't shut down the show for 3 weeks, for the TV show we used to have, Celebrity Apprentice, he did like 2 or 3 seasons of that. To then, if we skip the 7 p.m. show to go to Los Angeles and do Jimmy Fallon, if we don't shut down the show, what the hell? For Teller to go direct The Tempest on Broadway, I think that was where it was, or off Broadway. If we don't do these other side projects, people go, whatever happened to those guys?
Yeah.
So here they are at the top of their career. And I heard that, and it really changed this mindset that, to break out of the mindset of selling, but instead sharing an opportunity, giving a specific opportunity to go further in something. So, and I see so many hypnotists, so many business owners, even beyond our field, that are timid, that are afraid to make that offer, which people vote with their attention, people vote with their dollars. So that willingness to broadcast a message, and there is a modern day philosopher that we should all be aware of. Her name is Taylor Swift. That apparently, did you know this, Martin? Haters gonna hate.
Oh yeah.
And it's not that I feel there's a lot of them, but it's just this resilience of recognizing that the moment you become more visible, there's going to be some, let's just call them trolls, who aren't going to like what you do just because of a category you fit into. But that revelation that, let's go back to Penn and Teller, there are people who are in Las Vegas seeing shows and they'd rather go see Donnie and Marie. They'd rather go see Celine Dion. They'd rather go see whatever other production. So this is the metaphor of the dog whistle, that if you had a whistle that your dog was trained to respond to, you wouldn't want to go to a dog park and blow the whistle and have every dog come running. So it's this willingness to broadcast a message in such a way that people absolutely see it, because it's coming from a position of, I know the work that I do works. I know
Absolutely.
it helps my clients. I know my students are succeeding. And this is the mindset for anybody in business. If you know your service and your product is valid and it makes the world a better place, how dare you not broadcast that message?
Yeah. Awesome. And yeah, there might be people listening right now, because this is also like podcast besides the video, but there's something I want to share that maybe not that many people know about you. If they know a little bit about the history of hypnosis, there will be a guy called Milton Erickson that was very famous for his very fondness of the purple color, right? And people that know you, if they didn't know it already, they might have recognized there's something about the color purple and Jason also. And to build up this type of the level of respect that your colleagues have when it comes to you, is when you walk into the biggest hypnosis conference in the world and there's somebody who's wearing something purple, other colleagues will say, "Are you sure Jason approved of that?"
Which I'm the first to crack a joke about it too.
True, yeah, I know. But I want what I want you to understand also, and everybody listening right now, is that is because of a tremendous respect. Because who could copy a color from maybe the world's most famous indirect hypnotist, Milton Erickson, right? That is his color, but you just do it, and people's
it was entirely the story behind it is kind of funny, which was that I was filming a class. There was a class that I was teaching, and I knew that I was teaching the class. We limited the event to 12 people in the room because we had to have cameras in the space, and it was a small room where I was filming. And it was a class that originally was linear, start here, finish there. But like the stuff in the middle, I wasn't sure what order was going to be best. So I thought, you know what, let me just film the class and we can, change the order in post-production. And this worked out to be like a 2 or 3 day event. And because we did not know the order, I just wore the same thing all 3 days. This way it'd be easier to edit the videos rather than, oh, white shirt, blue shirt. So it was because it was the same color of the suit. And a website designer, they'll often look for a theme, and she pulled out that specific shade and used that for the website. And I looked at it and went, huh, yeah, okay, let's go with that. So the Erickson connection is entirely coincidental. There was a moment that solidified it, that there was a designer who I used to work with, that she was one day working on her website, on my website, and her mother saw the site and she goes, "Why is that man using purple? That's a women's color," which not necessarily, but that's what the mother of my designer said. And my designer at the time was actually working for me on a bit of a trial, that this is how I outsource. Let's, like a first date, let me have you do this one project. And if that goes well, we'll create an ongoing relationship. And this was the moment I officially hired her, because she says, well, he's building a digital media empire and purple is a color of royalty. That's why he's using that.
Wow.
And my response was, it just made sense. And I go, yeah, you're hired. Which, for what it's worth, the old et tu, Brute, when Brutus stabbed Caesar, that was because Caesar was the emperor, but he was wearing purple, pretending to be royalty as the king, and that's why they murdered him. So if this whole work smart hypnosis thing goes down, you can guess what happened.
Yeah. Exactly. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. But
No, but there's
it's
something to
powerful,
highlight.
isn't it?
But there's something to highlight out of that, which is that I hear people in business go, "We need a viral video," which is not how it works. People
No.
go, "We need to create this brand," and it's where I tend to say, get out there. And the business model of what Steve Martin described as his approach to comedy and business when he first started just becomes so good they can't ignore you.
Yeah.
And we don't need to have the flashy brand. We don't need the fancy name, but it's where all of a sudden that was the element that people were reacting to. And I could have made the decision to go, no, I don't want that, and changed it to something else.
Yeah.
But specifically for one segment of the business, Work Smart Hypnosis, we kept that shade in place and different gradients over time. But I knew I was doing something right when I put out my book, Work Smart Business. And like everyone in my community was going, "Why isn't it purple? Is everything okay?" Like, well, it's a different project, but, or the new, the local business, Virginia Hypnosis, people go, "Oh, but you changed it to blue. It's not purple." I'm having to go, it never was. So it's one specific segment that is, but you're right. The people who would have the t-shirts for their students or the tablecloth, and folks are asking, "Is Jason okay with that?" Which I'm, again, first
It's Jason's color, right?
Yeah, I'm like, well, our friends Mike Mandel and Chris Thompson, their students got purple shirts one year, and my joke was, well, it's okay because we made an agreement that for every shirt they sell, I get 20%, which was great because they were just giving them away for free.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I love this community when we have enough room to do stuff like this. And actually, it's an honor, basically. It's how we honor each other with these jokes in between, because we actually do respect everyone's work in this industry, and at least the people we get along with, right? So I love it. But it's time for the next segment. Jason, it's time to share your story. And the type of story I was looking for today is when you look back at, the past as it is right now, is there any moment, any situation when you think about it right now that kind of is the foundation of who you are this very moment as a hypnotist, as a teacher, something that kind of like pops up in your mind right now going like, oh, maybe that was one of the moments where I decided, yes, this is what I'm going to do, or took you to the next level. Is anything popping up right now?
Yeah, something comes to mind, which this story isn't necessarily hypnosis, but there's clearly a hypnotic moment that occurred inside of it. And it's a bit of a personal one that if you hop on YouTube and just, there's various YouTube accounts for different sides of what I do, but there's all these videos dating back to like 2005, 2006 or so. And the joke of that is it's the game of the incredible shrinking hypnotist, which you see videos of me where I'm significantly heavier in weight than I am right now. And then much leaner and, focused a few years ago on transitioning to then getting stronger. And that's something you and I've had a bunch of chats over. And it came down to, I had been kind of playing with, let me lose the weight, let me get more fit. And the sort of game where we're putting in a lot of effort, but just kind of spinning our wheels, we're not quite getting the result out of it. And it came down to a singular moment that the side story to this is that my son was born on a Tuesday. We closed on our home on Wednesday, and the movers showed up on Friday, which this was a weird timeline just because the sale of the home had to be delayed for whatever purpose. So like a lot of stuff happened in a short span of time. So newborn baby, finishing up the packing, and we're now in our new home, the one that we're currently living in now. And he was only maybe 5 or 6 days old at this point. So we had just moved in. Everything is in boxes. There's, mattresses on the floor just so our daughter, who was 2 at the time, could have somewhere to sleep. My wife and I would just delivered a baby. And it's this day that he, he'd fallen asleep, and you can move the kid while they're sleeping. And I go to carry him up the stairs. And it's the setup of, I'm in Northern Virginia, where most of the houses are townhomes. It's like sort of that halfway landing up a flight of stairs. and I have to sit down because I'm out of breath and I feel lightheaded and I don't feel good, which at the time I was maybe 40 pounds of fat heavier than my current size. And that was just one of these moments of newborn baby, not feeling well, despite at the time I was, late 20s, early 30s, was young, and just going, this sucks. I'm going to do something about it. And I always come back, which from that point forward, it became effortless to cut out the crap that I shouldn't have been eating in the first place. It became effortless to get rid of the BS stories that we make up to convince ourselves why something has to be hard. It became every reason why religiously I was at the gym on a regular basis, taking better care of myself. And from that moment to, and I mean, the rest of the weight fell off rapidly in that span of time, because just that click was there and the belief system completely shifted. So it's the reality that, if we talk about building a business, yes, there's a lot of foundational things to get set up. Yes, there's a lot of infrastructure to build. And I'm someone who feels the need to constantly dabble and play with it because I know I can level things up and make them better, maybe streamline it even further, provide a better service, give more value to people already in existing online programs. These are things that take time to build. Yet when you rewind these moments back, it's this singular belief shift. And it's this understanding that major life decisions happen in that split moment. Yeah. A moment where, and this is where it gets personal for some of the listeners, a relationship either started or stopped based on a singular point where something became clear and it was either yes or it was no. If someone's belief systems around, politics or religion or even their course of life, the moment that burned me I was in burnout in the theater career, the moment that solidified it, and I don't think I've ever talked about this. I looked at because this doesn't sound good. I looked at my intern, and my intern was fresh out of college and relatively younger than me. And I'm like, you are so much better at this already than I ever want to be. And people keep hiring me because they say I'm the best. And I don't want to get better to your level because my interest is somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I went, I'm out.
Powerful.
Yeah. So that really, the old phrase that so many of us use, that, change can occur at the speed of thought.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yes, there's actions and things to play out, but this understanding that it comes down to a single decision point where you can't look at the world the way you used to.
Oh, yeah. And the click you talked about, when that happens, right? It's kind of like, oh, I'm doing it now. This is it.
Yeah.
There's no going back, only forward, right? It just makes sense in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Total mind shift.
Absolutely.
I think something to simple it with is when you get your firstborn or your second child, that something happens, especially your firstborn, something happens in the entire body and brain, that when it happens, there it is, my baby, switch off, switch on, something different. It's a total mind change. So I love that story.
Similar to that, I mean, I look at the state of people's businesses right now in response to everything going on in this year, and we can listen to the story on TV and here's everything that's bad, but also we can shift that focus and go, where is there a segment that needs the help that we do? Which again, back to that mindset of the ethical marketing, how dare I not broadcast that message to those people? As all of this started to come into effect, I thought back to in college, I worked for a theme park, Busch Gardens, the ones that are owned by Anheuser-Busch. And as everything 9/11 hit, they doubled down and they saw people coming to the parks. They saw people still vacationing rather than retreating. So as everything ramped up this year and still is going on, I went, there are specific areas where people need the work that we do.
Oh, yeah.
This is the time to send more of that out, and kept things up, if not improved it along the way. But always, again, from that place of service, how can I get in contact with these people and let them know, here's a resource, we can help them out.
Perfect. And you made the perfect shift right now, because we're moving into the business insider knowledge. Jason, we talked about it a couple of times. You mentioned it and I mentioned it, like business models, work smart hypnosis, all of that. You you've done so many things regarding business, and you tried out a lot of stuff, and you stuck with the stuff that really worked, and you tweaked it, and you're still tweaking it. The last time you and I were together back in February at the ICPCH conference, the 3 times during sessions I came up to you to have a quick chat, you were on your laptop. And on your laptop, there was like 4 or 5 windows open with analytical stuff and graphs and all of that. And you still had a conversation with me as you were monitoring everything that was happening in your shop, your online stuff, your courses and everything like that. It's freaking awesome. And I know there's a few people who can manage that, but if we're to break everything down in a couple of great advices from the Jason Linett to people who really want to get their act together when it comes to business, what are like the main things that people should start looking at if they really want to optimize their business game?
Yeah, so the first thing that comes to mind is we have to start with the actual person that we're going to possibly do business with, and to embrace the fact that we can get rid of some of the sales dialogue around selling or upselling or conversion, which, yes, these are, things we'll often have to look at in terms of tracking our business. But at the end of the day, it's always about relationships.
Yeah.
It's always about building a connection with that person. And in my mind, always asking, how can I make that easier for you? So if we're talking personal change of a therapeutic aspect, let's call it out. There are people who overcome fears on their own. There are people who wake up one day and see things differently, as my story was, and they make it easy to lose weight or to quit smoking or whatever the personal change would be. So people have the capability to produce profound change on their own, but not everybody gets there as quickly and as easily as we can help them to do it. So it's where I have to be, first of all, focused on their dialogue, their language. That a friend of mine has a great phrase that the ultimate conversation begins in the language of the consumer in their problem state, and it ends in the language of the expert in the solution state. So we have to be in sync. We have to be in rapport with them. And I see too many people trying to run their businesses by just sell, sell, sell. I always teach this metaphorically that it was 2003, and I did not walk up to this girl at my college and say, you and I are going to get married and have children. Now that we've been married for more than 12 years, it probably would have worked. But instead, there was a natural sequencing to, asking out, going out, hanging out consistently, eventually moving in together, getting the cat, eventually proposing, getting married, getting the dog, moving.
Yeah.
There's a whole sequence to it. So I see too many people who are trying to go for that direct response sale, but instead it's about cultivating those relationships. And especially in the 21st century, the biggest trending thing is that of bringing people into a community. Yeah. People now more than ever want to be a part of something. So if you're building something which is that, and not just from a training aspect, but everyone pointing up at you and going, look how great you are, there's something wrong with that. But it's instead the whole premise I bring to the educational side of what I do, that the more we're all successful, the more we're all successful. Where it's okay if my client was successful, they talk about hypnosis to a friend and they happen to be in Denmark and they end up working with you. Sweet. That's going to benefit all of us. So the first phase of it is you have to build that relationship first. And it's always, again, dictating every step around how do I make that easier for you? Where, putting out a podcast for now going on about 6 years, whether it's putting out, educational materials, webinars, and blog posts, where people are getting that user experience first, and we're providing value. So this is the second point, is that as soon as we start to establish that relationship, we can deepen that relationship by basically bringing people in, and we're not just going for the mental trigger of reciprocity, that it's instead to ask, what can I give rather than what can I sell? Where we're building that loyal fan base of people who want more. And, those who have a business will understand what I'm about to say more than others, where you're building this environment where people want to buy the thing you're about to offer even before they know what it is. the way that we're in a community where people, are waiting to buy the next iPhone and they haven't yet announced what that phone is. People want the next set of headphones, which we're wearing the same ones. And they don't know what it is. Why? Because they trust in the relationship and they trust in the value that they've already received. So notice that before we've ever talked about marketing and sales and pricing, it's got to be relationships first. It's got to be service next, which the service is what's enhancing the relationship. From the bigger perspective, I tend to always live by the premise of under promise, over deliver, which it turns out if only there was a formula to deliver that every single time, which we cracked the code of a while ago, which is that you sell people what they want. And in the process of selling them what they want, you deliver what they need. And as long as you can satisfy those two criteria, you fall easily into that under promise, over deliver, where we don't have buyer's remorse, we don't have complaints, we don't have people asking for refunds because they're getting so. There's a program I just put out recently, which was all about streamlining how your clients call you. But the real meat of that training is about how do we build the value in advance of that call. That's where the real, oh, wow moment kicks in, as opposed to just, stick a calendar link on your website. No, there's so much more to it. So you match that under promise, over deliver premise, and the formula, again, sell them what they want, but deliver what they need. The last part really comes down to the thing that, is what builds everything in my life, that of systems. To look at what is this like? How can I do this again? Or even better, how can I do this in other parts of my life? So I know that, you're a personal trainer as well. So we find greater results from exercise, not if we're going into the gym and doing an entirely different routine every single day. It's that we're getting better at doing some of the same things over and over. And as there's different parts of my business, the joking phrase is that I'm always working to plagiarize myself. So there's an online campaign that we have currently running, which the way that I mapped it out on a piece of poster board with some Post-its that just move around to go, here's the user experience that someone needs to have. Okay, we need to hire the people to make this thing work. But that was built originally to go, here is a system that now we can use that to get people into this online program. But we can also use that system to bring people into this live training event. We can also use that system for the individual client. So if you look at a lot of what I do, from start to finish, the theme is always the same, which makes it so we don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. It's instead, how do I make this theme work? So back to how we work with our clients. How do I use this one technique, and this is not a word, but it is now, universalize it in such a way that I can use it for my stop smoking client, for my fear of flying client, for my golfer who wants to shave a few strokes off their game? How do we build that flexibility? But that mindset of the business, which is where, from a training perspective, I eventually became the guy who just has two core products. One is, here's how to work with your clients, and here's how to run your business. And the reason behind that was because, again, it's so much of the same information, just different themes and premises. And once we have that solid foundation of what has to happen in someone's mind for them to make a buying decision, the process does write itself. We just have to think, what do they need? What do they have to hear? What assets, what videos, what images do we have to create? And this way we can launch something entirely new in a matter of days because we know how to make it work now. And you notice how many times I said we recognize.
I noticed. Yeah.
Yeah. Recognize that you've seen my stuff. I am not a graphic designer in any way whatsoever. So right out of Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Work Week, outsourced like a demon. to be able to describe, which again, the phrase I've used, if you can describe the user experience, someone with a technical skill can make that happen faster.
Yep. Do what you do best and outsource the rest. That's basically it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And hey, thank you for sharing. Those were amazing insights and great knowledge. And it's time for something tricky. I hope you're fast. Jason, we got 5 quick ones for you. And the premises are answer as short as and swiftly as possible with the greatest Jason Linett wisdom, right?
Awesome.
Trust me, it's not going to be difficult. Your definition of hypnosis.
Let's see. Automatic reaction in spite of conscious intervention. So it's an action that's happening without conscious thought. The same as you're just, talking to me right now, that's not having to involve a conscious activity. So we're using hypnotic patterns to create that automatic reaction.
Awesome. Number 2, what is the most important thing in a relationship as you're seeing a client?
I would say the funny answer is someone in a Facebook group a while ago asked, if you had to be limited to 3 techniques, what would they be? And I didn't respond with techniques. I went high fives, confidence in my client, and an unstoppable confidence that they can create the result. So it's that, back to Michael Elner, hope is realistic, that I'm going to see my client as the result and bring them along for the ride. If I can't connect with their outcome, neither of us are going to go there.
What is the definition between just a random hypnotist and a pro hypnotherapist?
I would say it's that drive to, again, provide even greater value. That the amateur is looking more at the problem. I'd say the professional is more looking, Michael Watson has a great term around evolutionary change, that it's so much more about bringing them along that journey and creating that next phase of life. So the idea of resolving the problem doesn't have to be a game anymore, because the problem is now so completely incongruent to who they've become that it just doesn't fit. So it's that focus of where we're throwing that target.
Awesome. And if we're kind of like flipping the sides of the perspective right now, and you were to advise other clients what to look for when they were looking for a new therapist, what would be the key things to look for when you're kind of like looking for a new therapist, a hypnotist to help you out with whatever issue you might feel you have?
I'd say my first thought is if you're looking at that first conversation, who is speaking more? Because so much of this work needs to be customized to the individual based on what they're looking for. And if I'm just lecturing at you what we're going to do, that's often a cue that they're trying to fit you into an existing program, as opposed to this is why I've had times where I've seen 30 clients in a week and I'm not burned out, because every experience is different. Because it's where the old line about this is, you have one mouth and 2 ears, and that should be proportional in terms of your conversation. So that ability to be listened to and actually be heard, I think, is that most important factor.
Last one, number 5. Where do you think Hypnosis 2020, where is it moving right now? Where are we heading?
I would say that we have found ourselves in a cultural moment where the live services, the in-person stuff is going to rapidly come back with safety, with care, with caution, as it should be. But we have proven a market viability of the fact that everybody is now local, thanks to technologies like this. So we're going to find this amazing renaissance of people discovering new means of education, new means of reaching out, and new opportunities to connect with the entire world around us from the comfort of our own home. So there's some older belief systems that it has to be in the same room, otherwise it's not quality, which we have proven otherwise. Absolutely. In 3 months, there's so much innovation that's going to come out of these times. So I'd say there's always a great need for what we do, but I think we're seeing a place where people are more open to innovation. And even if that's the innovation of, here's everything I've done to try to resolve this issue, I might as well do hypnosis. So we're going to see a flourish of skills and great practitioners coming out of this.
And that leads us to our very last segment of this podcast. So watch this. We got a few minutes left, Jason, and we call this last part Happy Ending. And it's not misleading. What I mean by that is we want to end off on a good note, as we do with our clients and our attendees in our classes and the people we know. So is there anything you want to share right here in the last moment that would be a great advice to everybody listening, or something you want to share as an insight? And then I want to know, for the last part of it, What are you up to now? Where can people find you and all of that?
Yeah, I'd share the bigger perspective is that for every bit of challenge that may be out there, for everything that's a difficult moment, there's a different take of the story. That my entire approach to working with clients and even in business changed a few years ago with two clients who came in the same day and they didn't know each other. They didn't cross paths. And the first one, now that I'm retired, I want to lose weight. And since I'm retired, it's going to be so much easier. And then later the day, different guy, same story. Now that I'm retired, I want to lose weight and it's going to be impossible. I'm going to want to stay around at home. I'm not going to want to cook for myself. So from the same information, so the most inspiring or the most debilitating word in our language is the word because. And you get to be the one who chooses what that because becomes. So you hear people go that this isn't working right now because of the current state of the world. Well, for that same point of challenge, it could become a different because. A friend of mine is a marketer by the name of John Cook, and he said something beautiful at the beginning of all of this, which is that you should not take advantage of people, but you can take advantage of an opportunity. And I thought that was a beautiful way of summing that up, that from any one specific moment, it could become every reason why we can't. But instead, it could also become every reason why, as my saying is, I got this. This is going to be easy.
Nice. And what are you up to next, Jason? What can people find you? Do you have anything coming up soon? Or...
Yeah, well, let's keep the theme going rather than let's kick off with the question of what can I give? We've got a free webinar that's an on-demand event that's been running. It's all about how to create valuable programs for your clients. So it's great for those in the hypnosis community, even those in the therapeutic community. It's a 20-minute presentation. You can find that over at hypnoformula.com. So just like the word hypnosis, but just hypnoformula.com. That'll give you the details as to how to sign up for that free event. We're going to teach you exactly different mindset around pricing in terms of creating more value, but even better, how do we start to harness research and evidence-based approaches and bring that into our work so we're building a much more comprehensive change process. So that's a free event over at hypnoformula.com. And then the podcast that comes out every Thursday for free featuring outstanding guests like Martin Peterson, which you can find that over at worksmarthypnosis.com. So I'd point to those resources.
Awesome. And we're going to share the links. So if you're listening right now on the website of this podcast, you will find all Jason's links and also his contact details if you want to get in touch with Jason. And if you're watching, there they are right there on the screen. That's how awesome this is. Jason, as always, it was a pleasure. So even though we got like 9,000 kilometers in between right now, this was still awesome. And I can't wait to see you again soon, buddy.
Awesome. I'll see you soon.
Hello, world. Welcome to Mastery Through Passion Pod and Webcast, the place where you get professional insights into everything that is communication, NLP, hypnosis, coaching, business, and more. Intriguing guests and experts, world-renowned speakers and personalities, open conversation, and in-depth topics, straight to your screen or speaker. Let me introduce your host, Martin Castor.